Your kindness is the reason she despises you. You read that correctly. Every time you yielded, every time you apologized for a crime you didn't commit, every time you swallowed your own opinion to accommodate hers, you weren't building a bridge to her heart. You were digging your own grave. She didn't leave you. She dismantled you piece by piece with your full and eager cooperation, until there was nothing left to respect. You thought your constant agreeability was a virtue, a sign of a modern, enlightened man. You believed that by placing her on a pedestal, she would look down on you with adoration. Instead, she looked down and saw exactly what you had become: a supplicant, a shadow, an empty vessel waiting to be filled with her validation. And nothing is more contemptible to the primal female psyche than a man without a center, a man who orbits her world instead of commanding his own. Remember that Tuesday night? The one you've tried so hard to forget, but it replays in your mind like a recurring nightmare. She was late, an hour late. You had reservations at that place she mentioned weeks ago, the one you had to pull strings to get. You sat there, nursing a glass of water, rehearsing how you wouldn't be upset. You decided you would be understanding. When she finally arrived, she didn't offer an apology, just a vague excuse about work, her eyes already scanning the room, anywhere but at you. And what did you do? The words fell out of your mouth before you could stop them, a pathetic reflex honed by months of self-abandonment. "I'm sorry," you said. "I should have picked a place closer to your office. I'm sorry for making you rush." Apologized for her mistake. He saw it. It wasn't anger in her eyes. It wasn't frustration. It was worse. It was a flat, clinical disinterest. A quiet, soul-crushing pity. It was the look a person gives to a piece of furniture they no longer have a use for. You ceased to be a man in her eyes and became a problem of logistics, an inconvenient part of her evening. You felt your spine dissolve, your very presence in the room becoming a ghostly suggestion rather than a solid reality. The great pessimistic philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer would have recognized your plight instantly. He understood that human interaction is not a dance of equals seeking harmony, but a constant, brutal struggle of wills. He wrote that politeness is a tacit agreement that people's miserable defects, whether moral or intellectual, shall on both sides be ignored and not made the subject of reproach. You, however, went beyond politeness. You engaged in unilateral disarmament in the middle of a psychological war you didn't even know you were fighting. You laid down your weapons, your boundaries, your very identity, and expected a peace treaty. What you got was occupation. Your desperate need for her approval was the very thing that made you worthless in her eyes. She didn't want a servant. She wanted a man whose respect had to be earned, a fortress she had to lay siege to, not an open gate with a welcome mat. You offered her comfort when what she craved was challenge. You gave her certainty when her nature desired the thrilling tension of the unknown. You showed her your complete devotion, and she was repulsed by the lack of a price. This is the curse of the man who loses himself to please a woman. You are not rejected. You are rendered irrelevant. You are not fought with. You are ignored. Your greatest fear wasn't losing her. It was realizing she was never truly there to be lost, because you had given her no man to see. But what if that moment of ultimate humiliation, that cold stare across the restaurant table, wasn't an ending? What if it was a beginning? What happens in the mind of a man when he finally understands that his kindness was perceived as a catastrophic weakness? What is the one, single, ice-cold realization that can shatter the chains of neediness and begin the radical transformation from a ghost into a king? That is the secret we are here to unearth. That is the weapon we are about to forge. Before we descend into the mechanics of this psychological rebirth, before we arm you with the strategies to reclaim your internal throne, there is a protocol. Your transformation begins now, with a simple act of will. Subscribe to Dominio Psicologico. Activate all notifications so you are never caught unprepared. Give this video a like, a digital signal that you are declaring war on the weakness that has held you captive. And in the comments below, I demand to know the territory from which you are joining this fight. Tell me your city, your state, your country. Let the world know where the next bastion of masculine power is being built. Your compliance is your first step out of the darkness. The collapse was not an earthquake. It was erosion. a slow, silent washing away of the man you were, grain by grain, concession by concession. You didn't notice the ground vanishing beneath your feet until you were in freefall, wondering how you got there. This is the cold, forensic analysis of your demise. There are no comforting lies here. There is only the brutal architecture of your failure. And if you have the stomach for it, the blueprint for your reconstruction. The process of losing masculine authority is a clinical one, a predictable sequence of strategic errors. Dissect it, phase by phase, so you can see the autopsy of your own respect. The first phase is emotional concession. It begins innocently. She has a bad day at work. She is frustrated, angry, upset. Her emotional state floods the room, and you, believing yourself to be the noble protector, see it as your duty to manage her feelings. You absorb her negativity like a sponge. You ask, what can I do to make it better? You think you are being supportive. You are, in fact, committing the first and most critical error. You are taking responsibility for her emotional state. She had a problem. You made it yours. You have just signaled that your inner peace is contingent upon her mood. You have handed her the remote control to your own nervous system. Remember that argument about her friend, the one you found disrespectful? She defended her friend fiercely. Felt the tension rise, the looming threat of conflict, and you folded. You said, "You're right, I'm probably overreacting. I'm sorry." You didn't believe it. You just wanted the discomfort to end. You conceded emotional territory for the sake of a temporary peace. But not peace. It was tested. You yielded. She won. This is not limited to romance. At work, your boss blames your team for a mistake that was his. Your colleagues stay silent. You, wanting to be the team player, say, "We'll take responsibility and fix it." You just taught your boss that you are the designated shock absorber for his incompetence. You are not a leader. You are a utility. This leads directly to the second phase, the loss of frame control. Every interaction is a battle of realities, frames. Your frame is your perspective, your mission, your principles. A man with a strong frame lives in his own reality and invites others into it. A man with a weak frame is constantly being pulled into the reality of others. You wanted to spend the weekend working on your project, the one you said was important to you. She wanted to go to brunch with her friends. You presented your reality. This project is a priority for me. She presented hers. You never want to do things with me. Don't you care about my happiness? Your frame was about purpose. Her frame was about your devotion to her. Instead of holding your ground, of calmly stating that your purpose is non-negotiable but you can make time for her later, you collapsed. You abandoned your mission to serve hers. You apologized for having your own ambitions. Every time you do this, your world shrinks and hers expands to fill the space. She doesn't see a flexible, accommodating partner. She sees a man with no world of his own, a satellite orbiting her existence. And satellites are not objects of desire, they are objects of command. She tested you, and you failed. These are compliance tests, small probes to see if your boundaries are real or merely suggestions. When you said you would start going to the gym every morning, and she pouted, saying she'd miss cuddling, what did you do? When you gave up your gym session to stay in bed with her, you weren't choosing her over the gym. You were choosing her reality over your own stated discipline. She learned that your word is negotiable. She learned that your resolve is weak. And a man with a weak resolve cannot be trusted to lead, to protect, or to inspire passion. The third phase is the insatiable hunger for validation. Having surrendered your emotional independence and your own frame, you are now adrift. Your sense of self-worth is no longer generated internally. It must be imported. You begin to operate not from a place of conviction, but from a place of performance. You do things not because you want to, but because you hope for a specific reaction from her. A smile, a thank you, a moment of affection. Your kindness is no longer a genuine expression. It's a currency you spend in the desperate hope of purchasing her approval. You buy her expensive gifts she never asked for. You constantly text her, not to share something interesting, but to check the emotional temperature, to make sure you are still in her good graces. The question, "Are we okay?" becomes your mantra. This behavior is transparently needy, and neediness is the antithesis of attraction. A woman is drawn to a man who is a self-contained source of value, not a man who is a beggar for it. You have become a performer, and she is the audience. But she is a bored audience, because your performance is predictable and pathetic. It reeks of fear. The fear that without her constant validation, you will cease to exist. This is the point where her contempt begins to calcify. She may not even be conscious of it, but on a primal level, she is repulsed. You are a king who has abandoned his throne to beg for scraps at the castle gate. This brings us to the fourth and final phase before the total collapse. Emotional dependency and the breaking of the silence. You can feel the distance. Her texts are shorter. Her touch is fleeting, almost accidental. Her silence is a gaping chasm in your life. This silence is not empty. It is filled with her power. Her silence is dominance, not inattention. A weak man cannot tolerate this vacuum. He has to fill it with noise, with words, with panicked action. So you initiate the talk. You sit her down, your heart pounding with a nauseating mix of fear and desperation, and you break the silence. You say, "We need to talk. I feel like you're pulling away. What's wrong? What did I do? Just tell me what you want me to do, and I'll do it." This is the moment of unconditional surrender. You are not seeking to understand. You are begging for instructions. You are asking your conqueror to teach you how to be a better prisoner. When you asked for forgiveness for a crime you couldn't name, you signed your rendition. You laid your very identity at her feet and asked her to reshape it into something she might find acceptable. In that moment, you are no longer a man in her eyes. Project, a burden, problem to be managed. Women do not desire their burdens. They desire men who can lighten theirs. You have done the opposite. You have made your emotional survival her responsibility, and that is a weight no woman can or will carry for a man she is supposed to respect. Now, I can hear the objections forming in your mind, the frantic rationalizations of the ego trying to defend its failed strategy. But isn't it good to be kind? Isn't compromise the key to a healthy relationship? Let's shatter that illusion with cold logic. There is a vast, unbridgeable chasm between kindness and weakness. Kindness from a position of strength is a choice. It is a king choosing to be magnanimous to his subjects. Weakness disguised as kindness is a compulsion. It is a beggar offering his last crust of bread not out of generosity, but in the desperate hope that he will be given a feast in return. One is an act of power. The other is a transaction born of fear. You were never being kind. You were being afraid. Afraid of conflict. Afraid of her disapproval. Afraid of being alone. Your compromise was not the meeting of two equals in the middle. It was the slow, methodical surrender of your own territory, inch by bloody inch. You might also think, this all sounds so manipulative and cynical. I just want a genuine, loving connection. You fool. Think the world operates on your idealistic fantasies? You are in a psychological war whether you choose to acknowledge it or not. She is testing you, constantly, unconsciously. It is her primal instinct to probe the strength of your fortress. She needs to know if the walls will hold in a storm. By being nice, you didn't just leave the gates open. You dismantled the walls and handed her the stones. True connection, true love, cannot exist without the foundational bedrock of respect. Respect is not given to those who beg for it. It is a consequence of unshakable self-possession. The strategies we discuss here are not about manipulating her. They are about manipulating the only thing you have any right to control, yourself. It is about forging an inner core so strong that it commands respect as a natural law, like gravity. The fall is not visible. It happens in the silence, in the split second of hesitation before you stand up for yourself. It happens in the yes you utter when your entire being is screaming, no. It happens in the apology that leaves your lips for a crime you did not commit. No one is coming to save you. Your salvation does not lie in her approval. It lies in your own resurrected will. This is the point of no return. You've seen the diagnosis. You either accept the bitter medicine of this truth, or you continue your descent into irrelevance. The choice demands an action. Solidify your commitment to this new reality by subscribing to Dominio Psicologico and activating all notifications, ensuring you are armed for every future engagement. Give this video a like as a declaration that your war against your own weakness has officially begun. And in the comments, I want to report from the front lines of your past. What was the one small test you now realize, with chilling clarity, that you failed? What was the moment you yielded when you should have held the line? Your confession is the first step toward your reclamation. There's no going back for the weak. There is only the construction of the new. The man you were is a casualty of a war you didn't know you were fighting. Do not mourn him. Do not try to salvage the wreckage. That man was a collaborator in his own destruction. Your task is not to heal him. It is to build his replacement from the ground up, with steel and ice where there was once only yielding flesh. This is not an emotional journey of self-discovery. This is a cold, tactical operation. It is the methodical installation of a new operating system, one based on dominance, not supplication. The commands are simple. The execution is everything. Your first order of business: cut the excess. Everything that is not mission-critical must be purged. This includes your need for her validation, your fear of her silence, your sentimental attachment to a past that was a fiction you told yourself. The second command: install silence. Your voice has been a tool of your own subjugation, used to apologize, to explain, to beg. From now on, your silence will be your primary weapon. It is a shield that deflects her emotional attacks, and a sword that cuts through her expectations. The third command: control the reaction. Your predictability was your weakness. You knew exactly which buttons to press to get a response. You will now sever those connections. Your emotional state is now a black box. She will get no readings, no signals, no data. She will get nothing. This reconstruction is a solitary mission, executed in the dark. It is not a performance for her benefit. It is the forging of a weapon that she may one day face. But that is no longer your concern. The first tactical maneuver is the immediate and total reinstallation of scarcity. Disappear. This is not a petulant act of ignoring her texts for a few. This is a complete and unannounced strategic withdrawal from her life. You will vanish from her digital and physical reality. No calls, no texts, no viewing her social media stories, no accidental run-ins. You cease to exist in her world. The psychological effect of this is devastating to her sense of control. You are a constant, a reliable source of validation and attention. By removing that source without warning, you create a vacuum. Nature abhors a vacuum, and her psyche is no different. Her mind will scramble to understand the data anomaly. Where did he go? What happened? She will run through a checklist of possibilities, and all of them will center on her. Did I push him too far? Is he with someone else? Your absence forces her to think about you more than your constant presence ever did. When you were always there, you were furniture. Now that you are gone, the empty space where you used to be is a glaring, unavoidable feature of her reality. This is not about making her miss you in a romantic sense. It is about disrupting her universe and re-establishing your value through your absence. A man who is always available has no value. A man who can vanish demonstrates that his world is larger than her, that his mission takes precedence, and that his attention is a resource he can allocate or withdraw at will. This is the first brutal lesson in power. The second maneuver is the imposition of a strategic and weaponized silence. Inevitably, your withdrawal will provoke a response. She will send a probe, a text message, perhaps a casual, "Hey, how are you?" or a more direct, "Is everything okay?" The old you, the weak you, would have seen this as a lifeline, a chance to re-engage, to explain your feelings. You would have flooded her with a desperate monologue. The new you will do nothing. You will see the message. You will read it, and you will not reply. This is not a game. It is a declaration of a new regime. Your non-response is a more powerful statement than any words you could ever write. It communicates several things with chilling efficiency. First, it tells her that you are not motivated by the need for her attention. Her attempt to summon you has failed. Second, it communicates that you are in complete control of your own emotional state. You are not rattled, you are not angry, you are simply unavailable. Third, and most importantly, it seizes control of the interaction frame. The person who needs the conversation to happen more is the person with less power. By refusing to engage, you force her into that position. She is now the one waiting, the one wondering, the one left in a state of uncertainty. This is the essence of dominance. Do not reconquer her attention. Replace the old dynamic with a sharper silence. If contact is unavoidable, or if she escalates, your interactions must be minimal and unpredictable. A one-word answer, a response that comes 12 hours later, an acknowledgement so brief and devoid of emotion that it gives her nothing to hold on to. You are to become a ghost in her machine, an enigma she cannot solve. Be an absence that carries weight, not a presence that begs. These external tactics are a smokescreen for the real war, which is internal. The silence and scarcity you project must be a reflection of a genuine inner shift. This is not an act, it is an becoming. Your focus must be redirected with monastic discipline toward the construction of your own hierarchy. You will rebuild yourself on 4 pillars. The first is the physical. You will treat your body like a weapon system. You will train it, fuel it correctly, and forge it into an instrument of your will. The physical presence of a man who is strong, disciplined, and carries himself with purpose is a non-verbal broadcast of his power. The second pillar is the financial. Your professional mission becomes your obsession. You will work not just to earn a living, but to build an empire, however small. Financial power grants you options. It grants you freedom. It is a tangible measure of your ability to impose your will upon the world. The third pillar is the social. You will cultivate a network of strong, ambitious men. You will cut out the weak and the complaining. Your social value is determined by the company you keep. A man who is respected by other men of high value does not need the validation of any single woman. His status is self-evident. The fourth pillar is the symbolic. You will acquire knowledge. You will master skills. You will read the works of great men and understand the levers of power that move the world. Arthur Schopenhauer wrote that a man can be himself only so long as he is alone. He understood that the will of the self is diluted and corrupted by the need for external approval. The reconstruction of your symbolic power is the process of becoming so completely yourself, so grounded in your own knowledge and principles, that the opinions of others become irrelevant noise. This is the plan. It is not a hope. It is a sequence of operations to be executed without deviation. The goal is not to win her back. Let me be clear. The woman you lost is a ghost. You cannot reclaim a phantom. The goal is to build a new man, a man of such undeniable power and self-possession that she becomes an irrelevance. The respect you will command will not come from her. It will be a byproduct of the respect you have forged for yourself in the fires of your own discipline. You may see this new man and feel a pang of regret, a flicker of desire for what she can no longer have. Let her. Her feelings are no longer your concern. They are merely data points in a world that you now command. Your transformation from a supplicant to a sovereign begins with a single, decisive action. Your old self hesitated. The new you executes. Subscribe now to Dominio Psicologico and activate all notifications, for the battlefield is always shifting and you must be armed with the latest intelligence. Give this video a like, a symbolic gesture of pressing your boot on the throat of the weakness you are leaving behind. And in the comments below, answer this tactical question. Of the 4 pillars of reconstruction, physical, financial, social, or symbolic, which have you neglected the most? And what is the very first strategic action you will take, starting tonight, to fortify that crumbling wall? A man who wants to be loved will be discarded. A man who imposes his presence will be feared. And it is far better to be feared and respected than to be loved and dismissed. Your reign begins now. We return then to the beginning. To that cold stare across a restaurant table, the moment your soul was appraised and found wanting. We left with a question hanging in the air, a shard of ice in the heart of your humiliation. What is the one, single, ice-cold realization that can shatter the chains of neediness? The answer is not what you think. It is not a sudden surge of anger or a vow of revenge. It is not the decision to get in shape or make more money, though those are consequences. The realization is this: the game is not about winning her back. The game is about making her irrelevant. The victory is not her respect. The victory is your own. So, inevitably, after weeks or months of your strategic absence, she reaches out. The probe comes. A text, a call, a message through a mutual friend. Her world has been disrupted. The satellite she took for granted has broken orbit, and the silence from its disappearance is deafening to her ego. She demands a meeting, a coffee, to talk. The old you would have felt a surge of triumphant adrenaline. The new you feels nothing but a calm, analytical curiosity. You agree, not because you seek resolution, but because a king must occasionally survey the ruins of territories he no longer wishes to govern. You choose the location. You choose the time. You arrive exactly on schedule, not a minute early, not a second late. You are not the man who once sat nursing a glass of water, rehearsing apologies. You are a different entity entirely. When she walks in, she sees it. It's not in your clothes or your haircut, though those may have changed. It is in the way you occupy space. It is in the stillness of your posture. It is in your eyes, which meet hers not with longing or resentment, but with the flat, neutral gaze of a strategist observing a solved problem. She begins to talk. It's a torrent of confusion, of veiled accusations, of manufactured nostalgia. She might say, "I don't know what happened to you," or "I miss the man you used to be," trying to pull you back into the old frame, the reality where she was the sun and you were the desperate planet. And you let her speak. You listen, not with empathy, but with the detached interest of a scientist observing a predictable chemical reaction. You offer no emotional fuel. You do not defend yourself. You do not explain your absence. When she finally runs out of words, the silence that falls is not the awkward, pleading silence of your past. It is a dense, heavy silence. It is your silence. It is your territory. She looks at you expecting a reaction. Anger, sadness, anything to prove she still has a key to your emotional core. You give her nothing. You might take a sip of your coffee, your movements economical and precise, and then you deliver the final killing blow, not with a sword, but with a feather. You say, "I hope you find what you're looking for." There is no malice in your voice. There is no sarcasm. There is only a profound and unshakable indifference. The verbal equivalent of turning and walking away from a conversation that no longer concerns you. In that moment, she sees it. She sees the ghost of the man she dismantled. And she sees the sovereign who stands in his place. She understands that she is not looking at a wounded man who has healed, but at a completely new man who was forged in the fire of her contempt. She realizes with a chilling certainty that her power over you is not just gone, it has been rendered a complete illusion. She never had power. She only had your permission to exercise it, and you have, quietly and irrevocably, withdrawn that permission. You stand up, leave enough cash on the table to cover both drinks, and you walk out without looking back. There is no dramatic exit. It is simply an ending. You are not rejecting her. You are revoking her relevance. The great mistake of the weak man is to believe he is playing a game of chess against her. He analyzes her moves, tries to predict her strategy, and aims for a checkmate where she finally surrenders her respect and affection. You have transcended this fallacy. It was never a game of chess. It was a test of sovereignty. You don't win by outmaneuvering the queen. You win by flipping the entire board over, walking away from the table, and building your own kingdom where her pieces have no power and her rules do not apply. Silence became your fortress. Your absence became your throne. Your indifference became your crown. You have achieved emotional vengeance not by causing her pain, but by demonstrating that she no longer has the capacity to cause you any. Her greatest punishment is not your hatred, it is her sudden and complete irrelevance in the story of your rise. Respect is not requested from a negotiating table. It is not a gift bestowed upon the worthy. Respect is a tax you levy on the world through the sheer, undeniable force of your own self-possession. It is the natural consequence of a man who has a mission greater than any woman's approval, a will stronger than any emotional manipulation, and a frame so solid that reality itself bends to accommodate it. You did not learn to play her game better. You created your own. And in your game, you are the only player that matters. The rest are merely spectators, and you have long since stopped noticing if they are clapping or not. Your legacy is not defined by who you loved or who you lost. It is defined by the empire you built on the ashes of the man you were forced to burn. Before you leave this armory and return to the battlefield of your life, there is one final protocol. This is not a request. It is a command to your future self. Solidify your allegiance to this new reality. Subscribe to Dominio Psicologico and activate all notifications, for this war is eternal and our intelligence is your advantage. Give this video a like, a final, definitive stomp on the grave of the man who apologized for his own existence. And in the comments below, you will answer this, not for me, but for the man you are forging in the fire. What is the very first lie you told yourself to justify your weakness? And what is the cold, hard truth you will replace it with, starting now? Let her wonder. Let her regret. Let her tell stories about the man who simply vanished. Her thoughts are now just echoes in a room you have long since departed. The day she finally sees the man you've become is the day she ceases to matter.